Hello everybody and welcome back to another EP video. If you've ever been in a conversation about politics, you've probably heard someone say, "I don't like either party." That person also may have claimed not to identify as a Democrat or Republican, but as an independent instead. Today, that person is pretty representative of how Americans identify politically. The share of Americans who say they are independent has climbed considerably, according to Gallup's quarterly party affiliation data. In the late 1980s, roughly one-third of Americans identified evenly as Democratic, Republican, or Independent. But now, 40% or more identify as independent, while the share who identify as Democrats or Republicans has fallen to around 30% or lower, as you can see in this chart. On the one hand, more Americans identifying as independent probably does not seem like a bad thing. After all, independents are often portrayed as more open-minded and less authoritative or hate-filled in their political views. And in a nation whose founders feared these factional politics, the value of political independence is also an attractive one to many Americans. However, the problem is that very few independents are actually independent. Roughly 3 in 4 independents still lean towards one of the two major political parties, and studies show that these voters aren't all that different from the voters in the party they lean toward. These independents who lean towards a party also tend to back that party at almost the exact same rate as openly partisan voters that strongly identify as either Democrat or Republican. Now, the driving assumption behind explaining this sort of behavior is that people are just turned off by identifying as a partisan when there is so much negative stigma associated with partisanship. And it's clear that it's hostility that seems to be driving this behavior. That being said, the most important takeaway here is that it's not like these people have lost their previous partisan identity. They have just become more inclined to hide it. And polling data shows that Americans of all political ideologies are really tired of our partisan bickering. In January, 93% of American voters agreed that they were frustrated by the uncivil and rude behavior of many politicians, according to a poll conducted by Lake Research Partners and the Terrence Group for Georgetown's University Institute of Politics and Public Service. Furthermore, in that same poll, 82% also said that the nation's political, racial, and class divisions were getting worse. So, in other words, many Americans are so dissatisfied with politics and turned off by how ugly and partisan it has become that they now refuse to openly identify with either party, even though most still consistently back one of those two parties. This itself is extremely troubling because it suggests that Americans are not only less willing to share their political beliefs, but also no longer engage in politics in ways that go beyond just voting. Developments that have negative ramifications for the health of our democracy. Essentially, independents are far less likely to put up yard signs, volunteer, work the phone banks, or tell their colleagues and friends who to vote for. That might not sound like a big deal. It's not as though campaigns have trouble reaching people online or through TV ads. But this lack of engagement can damage political parties at the grassroots level, and we have seen firsthand over the last decade or so just how powerful those sort of movements can become. Additionally, we have already seen some very serious consequences of this phenomenon, as elected officials from the two parties are increasingly far apart ideologically, both in Congress and at the state level. The abandonment of voters openly identifying with one of the two parties has led to less political engagement, which means that Americans are exerting less influence on what the parties look and sound like. And that's a real problem, since the parties are still the fundamental building blocks that organize our politics. But with that party building left to more harsh and unforgiving partisans, the two parties' bases have largely cultivated candidates who tend to be more ideologically extreme than the voters they seek to represent. Therefore, you could say that the defining characteristic of our politics may be that the parties are weak while partisanship is quite strong, and that could become disastrous if it has not already. That is all for today's video though. I hope you all enjoyed. Please make sure to follow EP Official on all social media shown on screen and linked in the description down below. Also, make sure to comment your thoughts and opinions in the comment section, and please hit the like button if you liked the video as well. Subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you all so much for watching. Check out more content from my channel here, and as always, tune in next time. EP out.